Hey Angela,
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. We're gonna wait just a few minutes and see if we can get some more people to join in. I see a few people popping in now. Welcome. Welcome to our first Therapy Thursday. Thanks for joining in, everyone. We're gonna be speaking with Irene. Irene is one of the awesome counselors at the Turning Point, and we'll be starting in just a moment. I see some people coming in. Just a little bit about the Turning Point. The Turning Point is a rape crisis center in Plano, Texas, and we provide free services to survivors of sexual violence and their family and friends as well. So we offer counseling, and we have today one of our awesome counselors, Irene. Thank you for joining me on Therapy Thursday. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. Please excuse my cat. He's kind of in the background right now, demanding to be let out, but it's
It's
fine.
quite all right. Welcome, everyone. So, Irene, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, where are you from? Like, what college you went to? How long you've been at the Turning Point?
Yeah. So I'm kind of all around. I'm from all around Texas. I grew up in San Antonio and then moved to Round Rock, which is north of Austin. Went to middle school, high school there, and eventually moved to Arlington, where I went to UTA, University of Texas at Arlington, where I got my bachelor's in social work and continued on to get my master's in social work as well. Yeah, and mm, after that, I started working at a child placing agency for foster care children. I did that for about a year, and then went on to move onto the Turning Point, where I've been since 2019. So this is going on my third year there.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. So, thank you, everyone. I see everyone's joining in. We are chatting today with Irene. Irene is one of the counselors at the Turning Point. Again, if you're not familiar with the Turning Point is a rape crisis center located in Plano, Texas. We provide services to survivors of sexual violence and their families. And so tonight we're just going to be talking about therapy, the importance of therapy, and getting therapy after trauma. And so we have Irene here who's just said that she's been on the counseling team at the Turning Point for about 3 years now. So can you tell us a little bit, like, what led you into becoming a therapist?
Sure. So I first got experience working as a therapist in my practicum during my master's program doing social work. So I focused primarily for like children and families. And so I started out working at a counseling center, interning at a counseling center called Children's First Counseling. And that's really where I got my first experience interacting with clients of all kinds, and really kind of recognizing the need for trauma therapy. A lot of trauma focused work. All of the clients that I would see had variations of trauma, whether that be physical, sexual, emotional trauma as well. So that's really where I started. Kind of where my curiosity came in terms of doing therapy. Trauma had always kind of been in the background. Is one of the things that really motivated me to go into social work was my own experiences dealing with trauma, being a trauma survivor myself. So I knew that there, just recognizing the need, knowing personally what that was like to have others reach out and support me in that way. I wanted to do the same for others. And being able to work at a counseling center, primarily with children and adolescents, really gave me that kind of exposure. And that's where I kind of went into doing working with foster care and adoption, and exploring that. We did a lot of the primary kind of interventions that we would use were trauma-focused, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and explore doing that. And really, that's how I got connected to our current clinical supervisor, Heather. And, working through that, I eventually, found out about the turning points, and sexual trauma had definitely been something that I was curious about, that I wanted to learn more about, working specifically with trauma survivors, sexual assault survivors. And yeah, it's been a crazy, amazing process. I've learned so much, and it's really what I see myself doing. I couldn't imagine kind of doing anything else at this point.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I know that your clients are probably very happy to have you. I know we're happy to have you at the turning point, helping those survivors just try to, heal during their trauma. So awesome. Those of you who are just joining in, thank you again for joining. We are chatting with Irene. Irene is one of our awesome counselors at the Turning Point. We'll be talking tonight with her. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and drop those in the question box, or you can drop them in the comments, and we'll take questions at the end. So you told us a little bit about how you got started in counseling, specifically trauma-focused counseling. Why do you think it's important for someone to get counseling in general, and specifically those who are or have experienced trauma?
Yeah, so counseling in general, I think it's important to be able to talk to someone, an outsider, outside of your personal life, your friends, your families, to be able to get that perspective, and someone who is trained and is informed, and unbiased person. So in general, that can just be a helpful tool to be able to kind of reflect and work through whatever issues that are coming up, specifically with trauma. Again, traumas, there are things that are happening in the brain, physical symptoms that you're experiencing, that really it would just be beneficial to work specifically with a trauma therapist who has worked with those kinds of clients. And it could just be very beneficial to be able to kind of integrate the traumatic events that have happened and have a space where you can kind of talk about that freely, which can be difficult, especially with sexual trauma, to talk about, the things that have gone, the things that you're working through or struggling with, the symptoms that you may have, the invasive thoughts, the flashbacks. And a lot of this is emotionally charged work, and that can be pretty heavy, and a lot for loved ones, people in your support system, to kind of talk through it. And the amount of shame that a survivor can carry can really be a barrier for them seeking out that kind of support and talking through and processing the trauma that they've experienced. So definitely recommend being able to talk to someone about these kinds of things and process, and be able to utilize the trauma-based, the evidence-based interventions, things like EMDR, cognitive processing therapy, these evidence-based treatments to be able to help process that trauma.
Awesome. So I know sometimes a lot of people are hesitant to seek out therapy. Like, why do you think that may be? And then what is something that you can share with anyone that's watching that may want to go to counseling, but just feel a little hesitant about getting connected with a therapist?
So one of the biggest things is just the financial aspect of receiving mental health services. It's expensive. So that right off the bat can be a pretty big barrier for a lot of people in accessing services like this. So, it's important to be able to reach out to places like rape crisis centers to find out what kind of resources are available. Things like us, where we offer counseling free of charge, or, other agency services may offer things at a sliding scale, whatever you're able to pay based on your income. So just recognizing that there is absolutely this financial barrier that's attached to being able to receive the services that you need, and knowing that there may be options available that you may not be aware of, and that you may have access to and qualify for. I think it's just kind of recognizing that is kind of something that you can explore when trying to find options available to you. So yeah, just accessibility is a big one. possibly having past negative experiences with previous therapists or counselors, especially if you are a person of color and maybe you've had your experiences minimized, or you're not even comfortable sharing these kinds of things with a counselor who may be white or different, maybe someone within the LGBT community talking to someone who doesn't align or believe in those kinds of things, like those kinds of issues that come up in sessions where you may not feel comfortable sharing your experience. So what I would say to that is that, you know, when looking for whatever services are available, when kind of going through this process of finding a therapist, really kind of think about it as if, you know, this is like any other relationship. You have a right to ask questions, you know, come into that first session with a list of questions that, you know, what are your beliefs and background? Who have you worked with in the past? Those kinds of things. What is your like therapy orientation? Even just kind of Googling what kind of questions should I ask therapists, and I'm sure you'll find all kinds of answers. So recognizing that you are like playing an active role in the relationship, and you have all the right to ask all of those questions to therapists, and, you know, depending on how they answer will really give you an idea of whether or not you would be willing to work with them.
Awesome. I'm glad you brought up the financial barriers, which is why the Turning Point is so needed in communities, because we kind of take away that financial barrier by offering those free services. So if anybody's interested, I dropped our hotline number and our website in the chat box. So if you're interested in getting any type of counseling services with the Turning Point, you can give us a call on our 24-hour hotline. Visit our website. Again, our services are free to any survivors of sexual violence. So our next question would be, what advice would you have to survivors of sexual assault, like just kind of wanting to take that next step?
That you don't need to go through it alone. You're not alone. When something like that happens to you, again, the shame that surrounds the experience and the survivor can be very isolating. And recognizing that there are a community of people who care and want to support you. And really, it's just about seeking that support, and finding that community that can help support you, because it is impossible to do this alone.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you to anyone. Okay, so I see a question that says, do we have to live in Texas to use that number, or is it available to anyone? That number is available to anyone, regardless where you live. That number is our crisis hotline. So it's available 24 hours. We do have trained advocates there to talk with you if you are just needing any type of advice, or, you know, coping skills, or just needing someone to listen to you and wanting to talk. Please call that number. Again, we have advocates available 24 hours, 7 days a week, and it is available. You can reach that number anywhere.
Yeah, and something I'd like to add on that too is that if you're outside of the state and you call, like, you're absolutely more able to use that hotline, and say you're outside of the state. Oftentimes, advocates are more than willing to help find resources available in your area, because unfortunately, receiving counseling, you have to reside in Texas to receive counseling services from us because of licensure for the counselors and social workers.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Are there any more questions? If you have a question, you can drop it in the comment section, or you can drop it in the question box. Again, so just to clarify that question, what Irene said was the hotline is available to anyone outside of Texas. The advocates can help you locate local counseling or resources, but you must reside in the state of Texas to receive the counseling services. But if you're just wanting to talk with someone, you definitely can use that hotline. All right, let me just check and see if there are any more questions. If anyone is interested in receiving any of our counseling services, I put our website as well as our hotline. You can reach out and we can talk about getting you signed up. There's another question that says, do you have services for friends and family of survivors? I do believe the free counseling services are extended to anyone who may have been impacted by that sexual violence. So it could be the survivor, the family, and the friends of the survivor.
Yes, we also serve loved ones. And we also have groups available as well. If you're maybe not ready for individual counseling, we have various groups that we're hosting from time to time as well.
Can you give an example of like maybe one of the groups or the groups that maybe you've led or some of the other counselors led?
Yeah, so currently I am facilitating an expressive arts group. I know that there is an incest survivor group that's happening right now, a closed processing group. I know that for the processing group, it is closed, so right now you can't join, but it will be starting back up in the summer. And the requirement for that group is that you would need to be actively in individual therapy as well. Oftentimes we may have like a friends and family group. We've had meditation groups as well. Yeah, those are just some examples.
Thank you. All right, thank you guys for those questions. Those are very good questions. I'll just check and see if there are any more questions that you guys may have. Again, if you think of anything between now, next Thursday we will be having another Therapy Thursday, same time at 6 p.m. and that is Central Standard Time. If you think of any questions before then, you can always hit us in our DMs. You can hit us in our direct messages. You can call that 1-800 number. Just in the chat box. I'll pin it here. So you can call our 1-800 number. It's our crisis line. If you have any questions between now and next Thursday, if you think of any questions, please consider joining us again next week. And if we don't have any more questions, thank you so much, Irene, for chatting with us tonight and just letting everyone know a little bit more about the importance of counseling in general, as well as trauma-focused counseling. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And someone says very informative. Thanks. Thank you. We appreciate that. We're glad that that was informative for you. Can we go ahead and just drop some hearts in the chat box for Irene? Just thank her for joining us tonight. Thank you, everyone, for joining us again. We will be back next Thursday for Therapy Thursday. Again, our hotline is in the chat box as well as our website. So you can reach out if you have anything or if you need anything. As Irene said, you do not have to go on this journey alone. There are some people here to help you at the turning point. If there are no more questions, good job, Irene. Someone said in the chat box, they're dropping some hearts for you, appreciating you. All right, guys, thank you for joining us. Thanks, Irene. We'll talk again soon. Bye.
Absolutely. Bye.